I got fresh air. I took some stuff that the doctors prescribed for the shakes and seizures. I also took another prescription that the doctors prescribed for pain. It also has a blocker, so I can't use opiates or anything like that. It helps mildly, but it's something I don't really like being on. I rather just have a diagnosis and have the doctors treat this. But I'm doing a little better. Fresh air, some seizure medication, some neurological medication. Not the best, by the way. This is something that's mostly used for alcoholics, but it helps for other disorders as well. But, anyways, I'm doing a little better. So, I'm going to go over the bleeding eyes right now. Hopefully, my roommate won't interrupt this and make me restart it 40 times and then I stutter. Sometimes I have to redo these videos multiple times. I ask him, don't come in here, don't make any noise, but you can't make other people do what you want. You can only ask politely and hope that they do that. Um, Obviously, you can tell that this guy doesn't listen to my request. But, anyways, we'll move forward here. So, this is the time where I bled tears out of my eyes. It wasn't really tears, I just started bleeding out of my eye sockets. So, I had nowhere to sleep. It was very cold. I was very shaky. I was in a lot of pain, and I was trying to find some place warm to kind of curl up. It was about 1 in the morning, maybe 2 in the morning. I'm having trouble walking. I keep on stopping in doorways, hallways, wherever I can find. But you only can spend 5 to 10 minutes warming up in those places. If you spend any more than 5 to 10 minutes, you will be arrested. And I knew this from seeing other people get arrested. You have to keep it moving all night. And then you have to sleep during the day. It's the only way to keep out of jail from trespassing. And if you try to sleep at the shelter, they'll send you away because it's too late. If you try to sleep on a park bench, an officer will send you to the park. And if you try to sleep at the park, an officer will send you to that park bench. And if you sleep at the park bench, then the officer will send you back to the park. And after they both told you twice, then they'll try to arrest you or give you bullshit. So, the best thing to do is go warm up in a hallway so the shakes stop, so you feel less in pain. Then continue to the next stop, then continue to the next stop all night long. It's the only way to stay alive. The alternative is to seize, get stuck, end up in the hospital unconscious with a bunch of injuries, and that's no good. I go walking past a bar and I ask a gentleman for a cigarette. He tells me, yeah, sure, just wait a moment. So I wait in the doorway out of the wind for a moment. He walks by me, pulls my hood over my head, hits me in the head several times, asks me where my money is, asks me where my money is. And then I explain to him, I just asked you for a cigarette, I don't have any money. Then he continues hitting me, and then he runs off, and runs off like a maniac, like so many more of these evil people I see out there. You could have just said no and I would have kept walking. But anyways, this guy was drunk on alcohol. Like I see my family, several, alcohol takes the worst out of people. It makes you think that you can say and do things that you shouldn't. That's for sure. I've experienced this in my own life when I used to drink. Anyways, so I take the beating and I just keep on walking. I just keep on walking. I take the beating. I go from, you know, doorway to doorway trying to stay out the wind. I keep on having to kind of stop and crouch in a corner and then go another 10 feet. This is only like, I don't know, September, maybe August. No, closer to September. It's getting just a little cold, probably 55 degrees. And I get to an ATM. Now it's about 3 in the morning and I no longer can walk. My legs aren't working. So I just curl up in this corner of an ATM where there's no camera pointed. Nobody can see me except for the inside of the building, but it's closed. And I curl up real small, put my head down, and try to warm up. Now, I usually do that only for an hour and then leave because there's a officer who does rounds throwing everybody out of the ATMs, no matter if it's anywhere. But I understand this, so you only spend 1 hour. At this point, I start bleeding a little bit out of my ears. I just a little drop of blood in my ear. I have nowhere to go. I can't get to the emergency room. I don't have a phone to call 911. So I just stay kind of crouched and wait. But I keep on going in and out of consciousness. I must have a concussion. I have had several of those, especially from these seizures and falls that have been going on for 25 years. And at this point, an officer knocks on the window, picks me up, and he says that he's going to arrest me and bring me to jail for trespassing. I go along with him. I'm not resisting. I go, okay, looks like I'm going to prison for trying to find a warm place to not have a seizure, but I guess I'm going to prison. Oh well. Well, I'll have to accept that. I mean, I chose to try to not freeze to death. I chose not to seize for the night. I chose to get out of the cold, and now I'll have to do prison time for it. Oh well. So I put my hands behind my back. I let him cuff me. I'm trying my best to stand up, but I'm kind of like really dizzy, not feeling too good. Like always, I didn't feel that great before the guy hit me, but now I'm feeling worse. By the way, this is right downtown, right across from a bank that's really busy with benches. It starts with a T. It's the most popular one in Lowell. I'm right across from that. I'm right downtown most of the time where people can clearly see this. And I have my family as my emergency contact, and I'm sober. I have no alcohol in my system, no drugs. All of a sudden, the officer asked me why I'm crying blood. I asked, what blood? So he pulls out his phone and shows me my face in the reflection of his phone. And I see blood coming out of my eyes like tears. At this point, I say, oh, that's from most likely the guy hitting me over there. I don't mention the fact that I kept on falling down, that the cold was screwing up my nervous system, that I didn't mention any of that. I just mentioned the guy hitting me in the head because that's probably what the blood was caused by. And then he says, it's your lucky night. I'll bring you to the hospital instead. He brings me to the hospital. They just run a couple scans for the concussion. They probably call my emergency contact. What's my family? My family probably says, let him die. And then I just get released. And then I go do this a couple more times where I'm walking all around in a circle, stopping, trying to find a place to stay warm so I don't seize for the night. Multiple times I wasn't able to accomplish this. I would get stuck on the side of the road, then I would go unconscious. Sometimes I would get stuck in a tent for days, literally days. I would wake up, seize from the cold, pass out, wake up, seize from the cold, pass out, try to walk 10 feet, pass out in the dirt, crawl 20 feet, then I would end up passing out again. So this was a common occurrence, having to find a way to get warm and not have seizures. Because when the cold came in, it was hell on earth. It really was, because I couldn't move. And when you can't move, you get stuck. And when you get stuck, there's nothing you can do to help yourself. And so, yeah, I did bleed out of my eyes. I can truly say I cried blood before. And right in front of an officer of the law, and it's been documented at the hospital as well. Now, I would guess that my family would lie and say, oh, well, no, he's making that up, or this is some fantasy of his. It's not. It's been documented with the police. It's been documented at the Lowell Hospital. I mean, there was other people that were there. This is traumatic stuff that's happened to me, and I've moved on past it. But I'm so tired of people living in a fantasy world. When there's evidence, you can easily have a conversation. I suggest watching the video, How to Think Clearly, and then trying to do that. Trying to understand somebody and trying to get information so you clearly understand a problem. Saying that somebody's a liar or living in a fantasy world without discussing the information, that's not thinking clearly. And I gotta say, my father is not thinking clearly, and his wife is not thinking clearly. Doing this to somebody else is not thinking clearly. Keeping illegal medications in your closet prescribed to somebody else is not thinking clearly. Me taking those medications is not thinking clearly. Me having to treat myself for this disorder, that is not thinking clearly. Beating your kid with a ruler or throwing a shoe at them, not thinking clearly. Giving your kid too much medication so he'll be quiet, not thinking clearly. Causing your child permanent disabling disabilities, not thinking clearly. Ignoring the issue and sitting on a beach and getting drunk while your son's in a hospital dying, you're not thinking clearly. There are so many times where my father and his wives have not thought clearly. And there were several times in my childhood that I didn't think clearly. Well, now I do. For the last 10 years, I think clearly. I have options before me that I have to make. And I make clear decisions based on the information that is in front of me. I understand what needs to be done to keep a job. I understand what needs to be done to keep my apartment. Now I have two options. One, go get treatment. Just keep on talking about this. Get the state involved. Get Social Security involved. Get the doctors to help me. See the right type of doctor. That's thinking clearly. The other option, if I'm running out of time and they keep on wanting to go with my passed away mother's fantasy world, if people want to continue going with that, it's not going to help me. It's not going to help me think clearly, and it's not going to make me any better. So if that continues to happen, I'll have to go with a plan B. Seek out treatment some other way. Treatment for a neurological disorder that could be moved to another country and I hope they have treatment and save lots of money so I can pay for it myself. That probably won't work because I'm getting my neurological condition might prevent me from working. And I won't treat myself with drugs. I won't go do that, so I can't do that, but that would be a clear thought. I know what works. Take those medications. But the part about that that's not thinking clearly is how do you get these medications? You can't buy them off the street illegally. You won't get a constant supply, and you can't take them every day. That will cause more harm, so that's not a clear decision. Treating yourself would not be the decision. The decision is to keep speaking up about it, keep on asking for help. That is thinking clearly. But my responses from my family shows that they're not all quite there yet. Some of their greedy decisions, some of their self-centered decisions, some of their harmful decisions to my health, the decisions to keep a gun in the house while somebody's talking about suicidal thoughts and depression, and while your wife is acting mental, that's a very bad decision, and that shows you're not thinking clearly. I mean, having these things like medications that are controlled, multiple of them, as well as 10 others that are not prescribed to you, that's not thinking clearly. And both of his wives did that. Both his second and his third wife both did that. There are multiple times where they weren't thinking clearly. When a kid cuts his foot and it curls the skin on a metal pole near a pool, and it clearly is like a dull blade cut, and you got multiple medical professionals, and you got 8 individuals telling you that this is what happened, and you got witnesses who were there, multiple of them, and they tell you what happened, and then a couple or whatever later, you come up and say, well, I don't care what all these people say, I believe you did this on purpose. That's not thinking clearly either. Going along with your own narrative based off of your own opinion, that's not thinking clearly either. You're not using any facts from the person who's actually hurt. You got to use the information from the person who's affected by it. So I can see a lot of people aren't thinking clearly. And I used to never think clearly. Those medications made it very hard for me to think clearly. Drugs and alcohol will do that. And I not only was I on drugs and alcohol, I was on drugs before that. I was being drugged constantly, not only by the pharmaceutical companies and the doctors, on my mother's word, there was also a lot more to it than that. And that shows that somebody was not thinking clearly. And then I got harmed by that, and then I wasn't thinking clearly. Well, now I do. I understand how to think clearly. I understand where to move forward and how to move forward. I just have to wait now and hope that my God gives me the strength to hold on just another couple years. I've held on for 25 years. Let's see if I can hold on for another 5, but it's getting bad now. After 25 years of this, it's getting bad. It is. It sure is. Um, and at least I'm thinking clearly now. That's great. Now, if we can get my parents and my family to think clearly, that would be even better. But they have to understand what was going on and not go with somebody else's narrative. They have to go with what I am bringing forth to them. They have to read the seizure paperwork and they have to go through lots of information. The easiest way to do that is just to listen to these videos. I mean, I'm just basically spelling it all out there. It's really hard for me to go through this, but no one has to respond to me. No one stops me in mid-sentence. Nobody's going to hit me. Nobody's going to force drugs down my throat. And I'm thinking very clearly. So, if you listen to these videos, you'll have a better picture of what's going on with me. And you'll have the full picture. Don't go with any narrative that somebody else made up. They're not me. If they're talking about themselves, if they're going by memories that they have, great. That's fantastic. If they remember me doing an action, that's great. You also got to keep in mind, children repeat what they're told. Many, many times I repeated what my mother told me to say. She told me to say many things that would make me sound disabled. She made me repeat what she wanted the doctors to hear. She also made me say certain things, like I need medications for the rest of my life. And then she would tell me all these crazy reasons why, and then I would repeat these things. That's wrong. That's just me being brainwashed and repeating what I'm being told. That's not any evidence-based facts. That's somebody's opinion that I'm repeating and then is getting recorded. That doesn't mean shit. If you go over what the kid knows and the memories and the facts and what all that, then you're able to get a bigger picture of what was going on. And you have to start at the beginning to end. You cannot jump in the middle. You can't say, well, when he was 20, he was on heroin, so that must be it. No, because what happens at 7? What happens at 10? What happens at 11? What happens at 15? That, the fact that this was happening before shows that it can't be starting at 20. So if you go by the facts, then that dismisses that this is caused by heroin, because the heroin started at a certain point and these symptoms started at a certain point. So if you go over the information that's in front of you, you can get a full picture of what's going on. You can figure out what's true and what's not. Somebody makes a statement that this neurological disorder was caused by heroin at age 20. Well, that's not true, because if you look at the facts, at 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old, on and on, the facts showed no. There was many, many times where I had these same symptoms before that, as well as I was doing drugs to treat these symptoms. So there's cause, and then there's effect. You got to think of the cause and effect of everything. Now, I'm starting to get the lightning in my neck, the taser feeling going down my spine again. So I'm going to have to stop for a minute. And I'll go back to listening to really good educational videos that might help me explain this to you guys better.